My toxic entitled teacher treats all of his students like garbage, all because we don't know the material that he's trying to teach us. And after watching students drop out of his class and their major because of him, me and my remaining classmates decided to get some revenge, resulting in this guy getting reprimanded by the administration and eventually getting fired. Here's what happened. So this happened in the early 2000s, in my junior year of high school. The district had just built the third high school in our city, and most of the teachers were new, and the band director was one of those new hires. He was qualified for the job, but had zero people skills and was extremely abrasive towards students. He had previously taught university and could not wrap his head around the fact that high school students are not college-level music majors who live in practice rooms and write symphonies in their sleep. His normal behavior consisted of berating students for not knowing university-level curriculum, talking down to everyone about how he cannot understand why they are so incompetent, and stopping rehearsals to go on long tangents about things that had nothing to do with music. Every day, at least 2 to 3 students would leave class in tears. We complained to the higher-ups, and they repeatedly brushed us off. He made students hate attending music classes, and many dropped band and orchestra as a result. One of the classes he taught was supposed to be Intro to Music Theory. For those who don't know music, this would be a class that should be typically teaching things like different types of chords, the definition of music symbols, the logic behind key changes, and so on. At the first class of the year, there were about 25 kids enrolled. Most of these were music and drama kids who wanted to be teachers or performers in the arts one day. On the first day, he handed us a quiz because he wanted to see how much we knew, and I think there were maybe 3 to 5 kids who were able to attempt a single question on the quiz, but no one got a single answer right. That's how advanced it was. Imagine signing up for what you thought is a basic pre-algebra class and instead walking into advanced calculus. This teacher then spent the entire class period berating us for not being prepared when no one could even attempt his quiz. But we told him this is an intro class. None of us have learned anything like this before. And his response was to say, "Really? I thought this was an advanced class." The next class period, there were maybe 15 kids in total that were enrolled, and he did the same thing. He asked us to perform something that we cannot even understand, and then berated us for not being prepared. At every class, he would just say, "I thought you were all musicians. This is supposed to be an advanced class." By the end of the second week, there were only 6 students left enrolled in this class, including myself. He softened up slightly on those who stayed and seemed to think that we were his prize students and that this was his class of elites. But in truth, we all thought he was insane and cruel. But the 6 of us had sufficient music backgrounds, and we had enough experience to understand a fraction of his lessons. And without the bell curve, we all would have failed his class. A few months go by, and we are at the end of the first semester. By now, every student connected to music in the school hated this guy, and repeated complaints had done nothing to fix the problem. The admins filed away every complaint, but never did anything more than remind him that he's supposed to be more kind to students. Well, he changes nothing and still berates students and makes them cry. So when it comes to the final exam for his theory class, he decides that he wants to give it to us early, so that the day the final is supposed to be scheduled, we can all have a class party instead. Now, of the 6 of us left, 4 of us have the same period after his class together as well, and that class is AP English, and we were all prepping for the AP test, but we had no problem with a class party in music right before the AP prep exam, so we didn't complain. The day comes for our music final exam, and after we finish the test, he tells us that for our class party, he wants to take us all to breakfast at a new IHOP that opened 20 minutes away. We then try to tell him all the issues with his plans. We are not allowed to leave campus without permission slips, and this was a closed campus policy due to an incident where a student who left campus got hit by a car. Also, we will not get back in time for second period, which by the way was a final exam, and he doesn't have permission to remove us from the campus. What if there's an emergency and we are unaccounted for because we aren't even at the school? His solution was to tell us that after the start of class on our final class day, he would be going to IHOP, and if we wanted to join him, then that's our choice. But if we didn't, we would have to stay in the classroom and not bring attention to the fact that there was no class and no teacher. Well, without talking about it to each other, the 6 of us saw this as an opportunity to finally get the administration's attention to the complete disregard that this teacher had for rules and policies. We made sure to inform our English teacher that we might be late to class on the day of the final due to a class field trip for music theory. She was irritated and reminded us that this final was very important and that she would not give us extra time if we came in late. But we told her that we understood, and we gave her details about where we would be and what we would be doing and who we would be with. And she just said that she still expected us to be in her class. On the day of the final, we all went to IHOP, and it took forever for us to get there because of construction, and it took forever to get our food because the restaurant was newly opened and had a large number of customers. We eventually got back to the school halfway through our second period class, and when we got back, the admins were waiting for us as well as security. My English teacher had called the front office to complain that 4 of her best students were missing and that she was fairly certain that we weren't even on campus. Well, the admins had checked attendance and they had seen that we were all marked present this morning and that they had searched the entire school looking for our class. Eventually, the 4 of us walked into our English final to a livid teacher. Now, we knew that she was pissed at us, but she couldn't punish us beyond saying that we had the same remaining time as the rest of the class. Now, none of us did as well in the final as we could have if we had the full 87 minutes, but we were doing well enough in the class already that the lesser marks didn't affect our overall grade too much. The band teacher also had a private reprimand that was so loud the entire school could hear it. He was confused as to why the administration was so upset that he took minor children off campus without permission or notice, and without proper school transportation or even for a good reason. He then stayed with his usual attitude, but this time towards the administration. He said, "Why are you guys so incompetent about this? They're old enough to drive, what's the problem?" The English teacher, who I actually adore and was one of the best teachers I've ever had, absolutely went mama bear on the administration about how they could continue to employ someone who disrespects the other teachers so much as to deprive his students of their final exams and put them in potentially dangerous circumstances. He told us to drive ourselves to the restaurant, and any accidents or medical issues would have been the school's fault. Well, this guy was fired later that day, and many of the students had a gleeful but confused reaction since the 6 of us weren't talking to anyone about it. All most people knew was that this tyrant of a teacher was finally gone. We didn't spread the story very much of how it happened because we still fear being reprimanded for our involvement since he technically gave us a choice to go with him or stay. But I always smiled when people gossiped about what the final straw was that got him fired, because I'm so glad that I played a role in him getting exactly what he deserved. Wow, that guy is a complete moron. He not only came into this high school and was like, okay, you're gonna learn music the hard way, and not only did very little to teach you guys any of the material, but also treated you like garbage because you didn't know the material. Why would you too, by the way? It honestly makes no sense to me when teachers, especially in high school, treat their students like garbage and act as if, oh yeah, you should know all of this already. If that was the case, then why would I ever be taking your class? Wouldn't I try to test out of it or go to something more advanced or prove that I know the information more? This guy sounds like an absolutely obnoxious jerk. So truly, I love the fact that you guys grouped together and you silently agree that this guy absolutely needs to go down, because the way he treated you and your other classmates was completely unacceptable, and in my opinion, he absolutely deserved to get fired. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not ordering any food? Also that I could avoid 2 friends in my friend group who always try to mooch off of everybody else. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I've been a part of a small friend group of around 8 people ever since college. For some background information, 2 people from the group, who we will call Sarah and Greg, are absolute leeches. For example, if you're going out for lunch, expect them to order the most expensive item on the menu, then feed you some kind of sob story about their finances, and then dump half the bill on you. Last weekend, another friend, who we will call Dan, who's also one of the people from the group, told me about a casual dinner that they had. I told him how if Susan or Greg were there, I would not be able to come along. He tells me that they would be there, but I should just put my opinions aside and come just once. And honestly, this is kind of where I might be the jerk. I agreed with him and I told him that I would be there, and I show up and we all get to talking. Everyone began putting in their orders, and most of them spent about $40 in total, and there were only about 6 people there. When it gets to Susan and Greg, they both order expensive dishes at around $200. When it was my turn to order, everyone looked at me, but I just picked up the menu and pointed at a $4 Miller Lite, and then I sent the waiter away. Dan asked why I had not ordered anything, and all I said was that I had lost my appetite. Then the other 2 friends got up as well to cancel their orders and just have some drinks. After the main courses came out, I saw Susan and Greg picking at their food. The waiter then brings over the check. Greg, as to be expected, then grabs the waiter and asked him to split the check 6 ways. Well, when he tried that, I stand up and I correct him, saying the check was to be split 3 ways. Greg looks at me confused and asks me why, since we always split the bill. Well, I reminded him that 3 of us had not eaten any food, so we would just be paying paying for our drinks. So basically, at the end of the night, Dan, who probably ate around $50 worth of food, was stuck with a $146 check at the end of the night. And I swear I saw his jaw drop when he picked up that receipt. I then slid a $10 bill towards the check, I said goodbye to everybody, and then I walked out. The next morning, I found my phone full of text messages from Greg and Susan telling me that I was a jerk for not ordering any food and forcing them to pay more than they had accounted for. And I honestly laughed, because the steaks alone were more than what they had paid, but to each their own, right? I also got a lot of messages from Dan saying that I could have just not come along instead of pulling that stunt and getting him stuck with an outrageous bill. Now, just to clarify a few things, I will say that 90% of restaurants where I live don't do separate checks, and they might separate the bill for you if you're lucky. Also, Dan could have easily asked Greg and Sarah to transfer him the money if he really wanted to, but he's always been about helping them through their financial hardship, even though they're just using him and keep dragging me into it. In retrospect, I will admit that what I did was immature, but I'm tired of being forced to play along. It is his money, and if he wants to spend it on them, that's fine, but I am not also going to be paying for them. And I will say that Dan is a really good friend of mine, even though he's kind of blind to what's going on. I was just trying to get him to see what kind of people he was helping. And sure, maybe it was just a bit petty, but am I the jerk for what I did to my friend? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because truly, Susan and Greg really are leeches. Who in their right mind would be like, okay, time to order like the most expensive item on the menu, and then expect everybody to split it up 6 ways? Like, why on earth should I have to pay for your garbage? That is ridiculous, and that really is not fair for me. And the fact that any of these people are trying to blame you for this all going down in the way that it did, in my opinion, shows not only how delusional Dan is, but also how selfish and obnoxious Susan and Greg are for ever assuming that you should pay for everything in their life. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to grow up and get a life after he got so mad that I was painting my house a color that he didn't like? Because right now he is talking some mad garbage about me behind my back, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I bought a house in a community without a homeowners association, and I did that because I wanted my home to be my home, and that includes making it look the way that I want. I also chose a neighborhood that was already fun, full of colorful houses, instead of just plain earth tones. I finally got to the point where I could repaint my house, and I picked a soft peachy color with sage blue and soft and dark pink accents. It was fun and colorful without being way too out there. I think if you Google colors blue sage peach, you might see a similar palette. Well, my neighbor, who we will call Paul, absolutely hates it and has been complaining ever since we started the project. He also made his opinions known that he hates our front lawn. And for reference, our lawn has some wildflowers and sunflowers, as well as a fun garden flag and a little free library. But each and every time, I've told him that I don't care. Truly, I literally don't. And I've suggested a few times that maybe he would be happier in an HOA community that has control over everything and forces people into having earth-toned houses. Well, Paul got angry when I suggested that and said that he's lived in his home for 15 years and shouldn't have to move. So I told him, okay, well, you'll just have to learn to live with a little bit of color. So last weekend, I was putting in pavers that my niece and I had painted together. They're all things like ladybugs, turtles, birds, and anything with fun colors. I adore them, and my niece is so excited that she gets to be a part of my home. Well, Paul came over to complain yet again, saying that it was an eyesore, and my niece was here, so I just told him it's time for you to grow up and get over what I'm doing with my house. When I said that, he got even pissier and told me that I have no right to talk to him this way. Do you know who you're talking to right now? I then just said straight up, get out of my life. If he really has so much free time to complain about a colorful house, then maybe he should get a hobby. He then stormed off and called me a nasty piece of work, and my niece was cracking up on the side. For the record, no one in my family is uptight, and we really just don't care about cursing. I know some people still clutch their pearls over it around kids, but I'm sure that she says way worse. Anyways, one of the other neighbors came to tell me that he's been flapping his yap about how disrespectful I am for talking to him like that. She told me that she knows he's a pain, but that he has been in the neighborhood forever, and it is worth being nice to him. But honestly, I don't know. Is telling him to get a life that big of a deal? Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you did anything wrong. This guy is literally up in your business trying to tell you how to live in your house. Because you said it yourself, you literally bought a house so you could make it your own. And that includes making it a colorful house in some kind of way. And it doesn't seem like you're doing anything super extreme. Like it really is just something to make your house pop and stand out in a way that is not disrespectful of everybody else. So for him to come up to your door and be like, I don't like it, you better stop it. Like, that is really obnoxious and just super annoying. And when it comes to the other lady stepping in and being like, hey, I know he could be uptight, but like, seriously, you need to apologize. He's been in the neighborhood for a while, it's worth being nice to him. Like, I can understand where she's coming from, but also, why in the world is she getting involved in this? Like, that is super obnoxious, and I just can't stand when people do that. She's basically trying to take a secret side to this and try to convince you to come back and, like, I don't know, taper down what you're trying to do. And I just don't think you should have to do that for a second. So no, I don't blame you for telling this guy to get a life and get lost, because the way he was acting towards you and your family, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for ignoring my friend's phone calls after she invited herself, her family, and some of her friends to my home? Also, we could have an impromptu barbecue without my permission, because right now I kind of feel awful, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend is having a hard time with her spouse and really needs someone to be there for her while they work through their issues. We only just recently reconnected after not speaking for 4 years, but now every time she calls, she asks me what I'm doing for the day or at that moment, and then she invites herself, her family of 4, and some of her friends over to my house, and it's honestly starting to wear me out. For example, Friday was her spouse's birthday, and on Monday, she told me her plan was to take him to dinner. Well, she then calls me Friday morning asking me what I was doing. I told her I was watching a movie on my couch, and then she says to me, I know it's last minute, but I want to come over and have a barbecue at your house. She said the kids could play together and we could hang out and have some drinks. Now, I hesitated initially, and then I told her that I really didn't have a lot of meat here, nor was my home company ready. She responded that she would go grab some food and do all of the cooking. So I said okay. I cleaned up a bit, and then I received a second call. She excitedly told me that she invited her guy friend, and he may bring a friend for me to talk to, and a female friend of hers was also coming. And I was so shocked that she was trying to throw a party and not just come over and hang out with just her family like she implied during the first call. Her family was already 4 people that I was not expecting, which would have made a total of 8 people, including my own children. And I've only met 2 of the 3 people that she invited. She did not even ask if she could invite anyone else to my home or give out my address. Well, luckily I got a call on the other line, and I told her that I would call her back. 2 hours passed by, and she called me repeatedly, and that's when I decided to text her that something came up and that I cannot host a party for her husband. And after I said that, I didn't even get a response. I waited another 2 hours, and then I called her to see how the barbecue party was going. But she told me that she didn't even have a barbecue party, and I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on? I then asked her why she didn't ask her friends to come to her apartment since she has her own barbecue grill, and why she didn't at least go out to dinner like she planned originally. Well, she literally didn't even answer the first question, but instead she said she didn't want to spend a lot of money going out to eat. So am I the jerk for making up an excuse to end the call and then ignoring all of her repeated calls just to confirm? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, it sounds like your friend was using you instead of trying to, like, I don't know, spend time with you. Like, if anything, she just sounds like a parasite and she was trying to leech off of you having your own place. And it's so funny to me that the second you don't comply with her orders, she suddenly goes silent and can't respond to you about anything. And it's also funny that she's like, oh, I don't have a lot of money to spend. And yet she was willing to buy all this meat and all this stuff and then show up to your house and have a barbecue. It seems really contradictory in my opinion, and I just don't think she's being honest. So no, in my opinion, I don't blame you for not answering the calls, as well as making up an excuse just to get out of the situation. Because this honestly sounds obnoxious, and I would not want to deal with this if I was in your shoes in the slightest. An entitled old couple interrupts our private viewing of a movie that we scheduled, demanding that we move out of the way as we were apparently in their seats. And I've honestly never met anybody more entitled in my life. Here's what happened. So at the small town where my college was located, there was a small independent movie theater, and this movie theater had the option to rent out one of their screens for a private showing, and that's what me and my friends did for a birthday. So we've settled in, and the movie has been going on for about 10 minutes when we hear the doors open at the back of the theater, and in walks this couple that appears to be in their 60s or 70s. They walk up the stairs right over to our row, and without hesitation tell us that we're sitting in their seats. Now, we try to tell them politely that they're just mistaken, but we can't even finish our sentences before the guy explodes and starts screaming at us to get out of their seats and started calling us all sorts of insults. This goes on back and forth for a minute or so until we're finally able to ask him amidst all of his screaming if he noticed the giant sign in front of the door that said private event, which causes him to stand there fuming silently for a moment before literally stomping his foot like a toddler and storming out of the theater with his wife wife, making sure to slam the door as he walks out. Now, we thought that was the end of it, but about 15 minutes later, the movie stops and the lights come on, and the manager of the theater comes in saying that someone told him that we were doing illegal substances and destroying the seats. But after finally convincing him that that was in fact not what we were doing, he eventually starts the movie again and everything else went smoothly. But I will honestly never forget the way I was treated by this old entitled couple. This story is crazy to me. Imagine grabbing a private showing for a movie that you and your friends set up, only to then have this old grumpy couple come in and be like, "You're sitting in our seats." Not only did they not read the sign on the front of the door, they were also completely unwilling to listen to anything that you guys were trying to tell them. I'm sure this could have been like easily resolved pretty quickly, but these morons came in incredibly aggressive and like ready for a fight for no good reason. And then the icing on the cake when they're finally proven wrong is that they lie and they're like, "Oh yeah, they're doing illegal substances in there and they're destroying the seats, go get them." Like, there's no reason to act like that. Just get up and go to the other theater and watch the movie you're here to see. So truly, that is some absolutely horrible behavior, because the original poster and their friends definitely did not deserve that. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.